either any have anecdotal or personal experience with what happened in 2020, in which we saw some jurisdictions create the the their own application of the election code, and that resulted in 24-hour voting, in which the Texas election code had never been interpreted in that way before. According to the Texas Secretary of State, while our minimum requirements are at least 8 hours during each early voting weekday, we had at least one jurisdiction interpret that to say, well, let's try it for 24 hours straight. So this bill actually puts, we'll call bookends on that, with an expansion from the 8 to a minimum of 9 hours, and in the House version, beginning at 6 a.m. and ending at 10 p.m., allowing the local jurisdiction to retain the flexibility to select what time works best for that community. In addition, we saw the application of what I would call universal curbside voting. Now, Texas law already allows for curbside voting, which is for folks with certain physical disabilities, or they're unable to physically go in and cast their ballot, they're allowed to vote from their vehicle. Well, what we saw during the pandemic, and maybe with good intention, as we saw that that was cast aside, and just lots of folks in different jurisdictions voted from their vehicles. And we have put a great deal of emphasis on the polling location and its security, and the fact that you should be able to cast your ballot in private. Finally, we saw what I would consider to be non-voter initiated applications to vote by mail. Now, I would describe our current system as a concept in which it is passive. It relies upon the voter to step forward and say, hey, I want to exercise my right to vote by mail. I believe that I am eligible, and therefore I will request an application. And so this bill clarifies that a public official may not proactively just send out applications to vote by mail en masse, especially to folks that may not be eligible. It applies the same voter ID requirements to mail-in ballots that we already have in Texas law if you go vote in person at the polling location. And so that is something that I think that you've heard some Democrats complain about, or generically just some folks that choose not to read legislation but parrot what others say or they hear on television, to say, well, this is creating a new hurdle. No, if you went to vote in person, you're still going to be asked to provide your Texas driver license number, or your state issued ID number, or the last four of your social. What we're doing is saying we're going to require the same voter identification requirement for your ballot by mail. And in fact, if you do that, then it is presumed that your signature on that document matches. In addition to that, if you want to apply a common sense approach to this, there are actually cure provisions in the bill that state, if someone did have an error or an omission, then the election officials can either mail that back to them, or they could contact them via telephone or email and give them an opportunity to fix that. Because we go back to it, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and if you have an opportunity and the time in which to correct that, we certainly want you to do that so that your ballot gets counted. So this and many other small provisions are in this omnibus bill that I would describe that really do take a global view of how we apply this. We are banning vote harvesting, which you have heard time and again occurs, and it doesn't necessarily just occur in a partisan election. Testimony from the Texas Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office clarified that oftentimes you'll hear about that in a primary or in a local nonpartisan race, such as city council or other local politics, in which we don't realize that plays a very large role, especially when small votes decide the outcome of the race. And so I'm happy to provide a lot more detail, but out of courtesy and knowing that you have an hour for your presentation, and the fact that Chairwoman Click, I consider her to be an expert in this area, and I think that Representative Jeton should share some of his personal experiences with Fort Bend County and the application of the election code there. I want to make sure that you balance your time for that. But I appreciate the opportunity to share. The bill itself is 38 pages long, and I do think that there is an opportunity. We'll have a little bit of variation between Senator Hughes's version and the House version, but I am really bolstered by the fact that the House and the Senate have had fantastic dialogue on this topic. We've received a lot of input from grassroots and from our own constituents. And at the end of the day, when I sit down and explain this bill to my own mother, she understands that the changes that we're making in the election code are pragmatic and responsible. And Tony, you're muted. I'm sorry.
I see that. That is a good way to have to figure out if it's good or not to go to mom. They always will tell you the absolute truth.
Yes,
but I think a lot of these people on this call, they like to tell you how they feel too. Well, can you stay on for a little while longer?
Yes, ma'am. I can stay on for at least 10 or 20 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, let us end up having an update from Representative Click and Jeton, and then maybe we can end up maybe asking some questions, because Senator Hughes, I don't see that he's on, and I'm hoping he's not having difficulties with the connection, because you know that love-hate relationships with the internet can always play havoc. So if we can go there and then maybe ask a few questions, and then we can we'll see what we can do, but we hope you, as long as you can, stay with us. We really appreciate it. Great information. We want to be there to support you, so when this comes to the committee, or when we need people on the floor, we want to be there to help and to support what you guys are doing. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I said Kerrville. I knew you were up a little bit further.
Well, that's okay. Kerrville is part of our district, and it's a very important part. So thank you.
There you go. Okay. Okay. So I don't think that Senator Hughes is on yet. So we will continue on. If he joins us, we'll let him come in and give us update, because I know they've been very busy in the Senate. But Representative Click, will you go ahead and give us an update, please?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I also serve on the new special committee that heard House Bill 3. And as Representative Murr stated, we actually began hearing a number of bills on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and didn't finish up until Sunday morning about 7:30. I don't know that I have ever seen an author have a 5-hour layout in committee. Representative Murr did an excellent job in handling that, was well prepared in answering questions of the members that were grilling him. I want to congratulate him on the excellent job that he did. As many of you know, on Monday or Tuesday, I'm sorry, the Democrats didn't show up for work. And the Republican members voted for a call on the House. And what you need to know is when we have a call on the House, we can't take up any other business. Committees can't meet. And so we're kind of at a standstill until we again achieve a quorum. You may have also have heard that Speaker Phelan has removed Speaker Pro Tem Moody from that position. That is something that they serve at the pleasure of the Speaker, and he has been removed. The Speaker has also sent out a letter to the Democrat members who are absent, asking them to forego getting their per diem while they're absent from service. A lot of the Democrats, if you watch MSNBC, they are the wholesale-owned subsidiary of the Democrat Party. It's Democrat House members all day, every day on their channel. But there's beginning to be some pushback. Great editorial in the Dallas Morning News, also the Wall Street Journal. Karl Rove did a great editorial showing that they're really, it's a lot of hyperbole for nothing. They are making up things that they're saying are in the bill that quite frankly are not in the bill. These are common sense solutions to address issues that we saw with rogue election officials crafting their own election code last election cycle here in Texas. So we are hoping that not all the members that ran away will stay away the entire special session because I don't think that they are quite getting the intended results. Would encourage members that are on the call today, if you live in one of those districts and your Democrat elected official has not shown up to work, would encourage you to call their office and express your opinion about not showing up for work. So that's all I have, other than to say at 9 a.m., if you go on the House feed, there will be a press conference by the Republican caucus, and Representative Murr will be talking more about election integrity there, and would encourage you to watch online. You can do that from the Texas Legislature Online website.
That's great. Thank you, Representative. Do you know that link by heart, that somebody might be able to type that into the chat?
Find it while we're continuing to talk and put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That way it gives people that opportunity if they want to participate at 9 or, to watch. Thank you for sharing that. So let's move on to Representative Jayton. You are, I know, around here somewhere. I saw you a few minutes. There you are. I see you smiling. Yeah. So thank you. Good morning. And I forgot, I don't know if I've ever said that's Representative Click represents 91, District 91, and Representative Jayton has 26. You have all sorts of fun things going in your district, I got to tell you. So why don't you go ahead and give us an update? And I know we're going to be hearing from you in a little bit about this door-to-door campaign. So anyway, so what do you have to tell us today?
Yeah, sure. So it's good to be with y'all again this week. I think Representative Moore did a great job recapping HB3, and Representative Click did a good job of kind of laying out where we're at. I know there's a lot of frustration, and I think it's important to mention that a lot of the remedies that are mentioned require 100 votes to enact. And so I just want to remind everybody, we're doing everything that we can to address this. But I can also tell you that, between Speaker Phelan and the Republican caucus, I think that we've been very good with the messaging that's been pushed out there, making sure there's emphasis on recognizing that, listen, you may not like the election bill, but there are retired teachers, there are children in the foster care system, there are a lot of other important issues that they're leaving on the table that is harming Texans. And until they come back, these people will suffer. And so I just want to remind everybody, we're in this for the long haul. At some point, they're going to have to come back. And when they do, we will have HB3 ready to go. We'll have SB1 ready to go, and we will continue this on. They may be slowing it down, but at some point, this is getting done. And so be patient with us. We're going to keep on fighting this fight, and we need y'all to continue to be with us as we fight this fight. And so don't turn on us. We're still in this with y'all. And when it does come back to the floor, we're going to need y'all to come out there and show a presence and make sure that it's recognized that this isn't just pushing against the Democrats, that there are people on the side of wanting this bill passed. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. I know there's a lot of questions, and I don't know if you want to go into the Fort Bend County stuff yet, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, just because I'm going to hold on that right at the moment, only because we have Representative Murr just for a few more minutes. So I'm thinking that we might ask some questions, and then we will probably go into that in about 10-15 minutes. Okay. Let me. So Karen, Karen Marshall, our question gal, who puts all of you guys on the hot seat, for some reason isn't on, and I'm not sure what happened there, but I've got to back up. I got Bisa Martin, who is a part of the founding committee or our group, one of the founders of this call. And so she is now the question lady and is going to put some questions out for the three of you to answer. So Bisa, I'm putting you on the hot seat to put them on the hot seat.
All right. Well, thank y'all for being on this morning. From Tom Boone, he asked, what about the creation of election marshals to enforce the election code on election officials trying to violate the codes?
I'll start with that. So the current framework right now, so we're not writing our election code from scratch. Currently, our election code identifies different positions, including election official, election judges, and our poll workers, many of whom are volunteers. And if you'll recall, we also identify poll watchers, which are appointed by either candidates or campaigns to watch and observe the election officials and their process, not necessarily the voters. They're not there to watch voters, they're there to watch the election officials. They are an extension of the candidate or the campaign that is participating in the election to be their eyes and ears. And so at the end of the day, current framework puts the goal of enforcing the election code on the campaign or the candidate that is involved in the race. They are the interested party, and that's been the application of our law for the last good generation or so. While I believe and I can understand a concept of election marshals to simply say this is how you're going to do it, I believe that Chairwoman Click and Representative Jatan would talk about the training that's afforded all of these participants is typically pretty in-depth, and that for the most part, you do have hardworking individuals trying to make sure that they follow all the rules. I don't know that that consideration is something that has been talked about in either the Senate hearings or the House hearings on this legislation. Right now, it has been to ensure that poll watchers are not parked in a seat in the corner and not allowed to actually observe what's going on in the room as the extension of the candidate, with being their eyes and ears. And so that's one thing that we're looking to correct. We saw during the pandemic that distance requirements, space requirements, or even separate room requirements through a window occurred, and that restricted the poll watchers' ability to do their job, which was to be present. I think that's been the focal point to ensure that election officials do follow through with their responsibilities to conduct a fair and balanced election. However, if I haven't answered it completely, JC Jatan may jump in there, or Stephanie Click will as well.
I can jump in. I remember hearing this during committee this year, or during the regular session, and I understand the concept. I understand the desire, and there's some chance that bill may pass on its own. I'm not sure that it fits within HB3 and SB1 as desired now, but the desire is to have a kind of a law enforcement wing able to go in there and enforce the election code. And right now we kind of rely on attorneys and law enforcement whenever there's disruption of the peace or anything else going on in the polling location that needs to be dealt with. And this is and the reason for that is you have election judges that are basically the equivalent of district judges in their authority. And so the framework as we have it right now allows some remedies. And if I'm trying to remember if HB3 still had the civil remedies, I think SB1 may have, and that was part of SB7 to allow quicker remedies through the legal process, requiring the judges to prioritize and move on this stuff, so we're not dealing with it months after the election, which is another reason we were looking at or there was a push for the election marshals. And so I'm not saying it's off the table. I think it's something we're going to continue the conversation on, but it's a pretty lofty thing to also include into HB3 and SB1, I think, in my opinion.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Paraphrasing, Michael McCluskey is concerned about the media's argument saying that it's a voter suppression. What can the legislative members do to counter this false messaging?
One of the things you might be surprised about is, the president has also joined in calling this a voter suppression bill. Do you know his home state of Delaware doesn't even have early voting? And furthermore, his home state, if you're over 65, you're not necessarily eligible to vote by mail. And if you do vote by mail, you don't have the ability to correct your ballot like this legislation that the contents of HB 3. So I don't hear the president saying that the conditions in Delaware suppress voters.
That's a good point. That's great talking points for us to have. Is that put out there, Stephanie? Did you guys put that on your website?
National Conference of State Legislature has a great website. It's open to the public. They compare the different voting provisions amongst states, and that's where I found that information.
Wow.
Would encourage it. I mean, there are lots and lots of other, I mean, our laws are certainly less restrictive than New York and Massachusetts, but we don't see the Democrats that represent those states saying that they have voter suppression in their state.
And I'll just chime in and add, those concepts push back against the generic talk that you hear that Texas is going to outlaw 24-hour voting and Texas is going to outlaw universal vote from your car or motor voting. And the real practical application of that is, according to the Texas Secretary of State, 24-hour voting has never occurred in Texas until it was tried in 2020. And as well as the universal vote from your car without a reason. We have curbside voting for a specific group of folks, and that's it. And that's protected by federal law. And there is no harm that's done in Texas, which allows more than 2 weeks to early vote before you even get to election day. And then you have 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to go and vote. Most jurisdictions do not have an expansive opportunity to ensure that all their registered voters can go vote. Just doesn't exist. And then when you look at the other provisions that are contained in this bill, especially in the House bill, while federal law states that an employer has to give an employee time off to go vote on election day, we codifying the fact that we want that to occur for early voting as well. Those are simple steps that we take because we hold the right to vote near and dear, and we want all of our neighbors, our friends, the folks that we go to church and go to the grocery store and see, we want them to all go vote. And we may not vote for the same person or the same ballot initiative, but I've always viewed the right to vote as a license to complain. If you didn't vote, how are you going to complain about the outcome later? And so that is very hard for them to point to specific facts in this bill other than bland accusations that somehow the state of Texas is dialing back what wasn't currently law to begin with. And we saw litigation that actually affirmed that, a county clerk can't proactively send out ballots to thousands or millions of voters. It doesn't work that way so that they can, applications to vote by mail. It doesn't work that way. And so that's what the clarifications in this bill simply set forth.
And I'll just finish with this. The House Republican Caucus is supposed to be working on messaging points today that you're gonna start seeing a lot of representatives push out there and others. So feel free to live from that, do whatever you want with it, but we do need y'all's help to help push that message out because we recognize the media is not going to necessarily push out all of our talking points, and so we do rely on y'all to help push that out. And so keep an eye on what the House Republican Caucus puts out and your Republican reps around the state.
And Tony Ann, I'm going to have to jump off, but I'll leave you just with this. This morning, and I did this on purpose. The Houston Chronicle has published an op-ed piece by me as the House author, and I figured it was important to focus on Harris County because I think a lot of the discussion has evolved around the interpretations of the election code by Harris County. That's in today's paper. And that sets forth a lot of the arguments about this bill and specific provisions that are beneficial to all Texans, as well as pushing back on a lot of the concepts that are being advocated by Democrats to further a different and broader national agenda.
Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm glad you shared that. If somebody would Google it so it could be brought up, what would they go? Would they just like maybe your name, or do you have a title that they could put in there?
You know, this morning at 3 o'clock when I got up, I Googled Houston Chronicle op-ed, and I found it within 10 seconds. So that's
Okay, perfect. Houston Chronicle op-ed. Representative Muir, thank you so much for your time. We do hope maybe we can have you back again, because it's been very valuable information, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing for us. Thank you
very much. I appreciate it. It's good to see friendly faces, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so it is about 20 minutes to 8. I think we'll take, Bisa, I think we'll take one more question, and then we're going to go over to Fort Bend County of what happened over there and why we need to create watchdog groups across the state, across the nation, actually. So, Bisa, do you want to give us and I just found out that the reason why Karen wasn't on the call is she just got off of a plane. So go ahead, Bisa.
Several people want to know, how can we get a list of the missing Democratic representatives?
So there was a list.
Go ahead, Representative.
Okay, I did see a list that was in the Texas Tribune that was pretty extensive. I know that some members have started to show back up, and so maybe that list has dropped a couple. But we can try and push out a list today on our social media.
Okay, great, thank you. Do one other question. I'll give you one more question.
Okay, is there some way that we can, in the future, put teeth into the law and prevent the Democrats from leaving the state again?
So I'll just jump in. From everything that I've seen, we need 100 votes to accomplish a lot of that. And so I would argue that our focus really has to be on 2022 and picking up some more seats. And if we get to 100 votes, we're going to be able to do a lot of things to prevent this in the future. But for as long as we require 100 votes, we're kind of going to have to work together and find ways to make this all happen.
Okay, thank you. Were you going to say something, Stephanie?
No.
Okay, so somebody asked the question, I saw it come through, about are there any other states that have 24-hour voting? And I went to, and I don't know, I see, JC, I see that you're shaking your head. I went to the RNC and asked that question. I'm getting it confirmed by somebody else. And the answer was, well, nobody except for Harris County. Oh, great. So anyway, I'm getting that confirmed now, and I'll probably hear back on that during the time we have this next presentation. I thank you, Representative Click and Jayton, for giving all this information. I know there's tons of more questions, but I think this is crucial to hear what happened in Fort Bend County. Just to lead up a little bit to it, is that, I mean, I heard on national news about New Jersey or New York or some other state doing this door-to-door campaign, IDing those people who have not had vaccines. And it's like, oh my God, that is just ridiculous. Why would they do something like that? They are so taking away our rights. And then I end up getting an email from Edie Sinclair, who is our SREC representative in 18, taking part of Fort Bend County, which is Katy, and then a number of other counties. And she starts to tell me in this email about Fort Bend County doing this exact same thing and the money that is being put forth. Well, when that came to me, I thought, you know what? We need people to know what's going on. And I can remember when back a number of years ago at a Christmas party, somebody said that, oh, there's going to be a truck stop, a Flying J in Bernie, in the city, well, just outside the city limits, but by residential places. Nobody knew anything about it. It had been talked about for a number of months, but nobody had been going to the city council to watch it. And then I got onto it with another girlfriend. We got a watchdog committee, and we defeated it because that was, I didn't care if it went down the road, but not in Vernon, you know, not in one of the entrants. So this is why I think this is important for us to hear this and know how we need to be on top of the city council, the county commissioner, and our school boards. So I'm going to turn it over to, I don't know, Edie, Becky. Becky is also, I mentioned earlier, is SREC from 17, and which takes him part of Fort Bend County. And then of course we've got our representative, JC Jatan, who represents Fort Bend. So we have great representation to find out how this came about, what they're doing, and how it's going forward. So Edie, or how do you want me to turn it over to Representative Jatan? Did Edie freeze? Edie looked like she froze.
I'm on here. I'm on here.
Becky, there you are. Hi, Becky.
I think Edie may be frozen for a second. I just want to say hello, everybody, and thank you to SREC Committeewoman Sinclair. We do share Fort Bend County, and she contacted me, sort of sent out a blast and said, hey, alert, this is what's going on. And we just started calling people we know. And we contacted a fellow SREC member who happens to be an insider with be employed by the Abbott campaign. We got the governor's office activated. We just started contacting people because this was one of those insidious things that happens when we're not paying attention. And so kudos to Edie for getting me involved. Edie, we have a divide and conquer mentality on SREC. And so Edie lives in Fort Bend County and she works there is it in elections, Edie?
Yes, yes.
And so Edie knows before I do what's happening in Fort Bend. So she keeps me informed. I live in Brazoria. Now I'm letting the Brazoria County folks know what's going on in our neighboring counties. This is what we have to do. We cannot guard down. We would not know about this if it were not for grassroots activists making us aware. So I think Edie, do you have anything to add, or do we need to let Josie talk about this?
I'm going to go back even further. This started on a Facebook private SC18 chat. One lady found this on the agenda and alerted us. And our county chair made calls to get people to go to county commissioner's court. And we researched, and they've been planning this since last April. So we have to get grassroots. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to be elected. We need conservatives that are digging in to see what the Democrats are doing. So,
okay, so then let's go a little bit further so we can hear a little bit about it and what you guys did. And I think Chairwoman Linda Howe is on the call too, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And I know she was an active part about it. But I'm going to turn it over to Representative Jatan to talk about what was presented to the Commissioner's Court. I saw your letter on Facebook. So if you could go ahead and explain in further detail what's going on and how they're trying to pay for this.
Sure. So here's what's happening. So everybody's kind of heard about what Biden's trying to do with, trying to get everyone vaccinated. The argument in Fort Bend County by the county judge, KP George, and the Democrats on the Commissioner's Court, which is 3-2 court right now, is that at-risk areas are getting less vaccinations, and their thought is that they need to go door to door to be able to accomplish that. And our pushback on it is that in Fort Bend County, we have about 74% of the population that's able to get the vaccine, and I think it's about 96% of those over 65 or with a medical condition having the vaccine, at least the first vaccination already. That is a very high rate if you compare that to anywhere around the state or really around the country. And so there's really no reason to do this. They decided to pursue this political Democrat consulting firm, Next Wave Strategies, who has clients. I think their highest profile now is the Democrat Attorney General candidate on the Democrat side. But it's a Democrat political consulting firm to go door to door to accomplish this. And County Judge George, while he was laying this out, specifically said that they will knock on doors of those that are unvaccinated, that the county has that data, and that it would be provided to this company. And it was that really sparked the concern that, you know, if it doesn't fall under a HIPAA violation, we've kind of worked, we've reached out to Dishes, we've reached out to some others about what the state code says, state statutes say, and you know it's not specific on this, and so we did go to Ledge Council, and Senator Colcourse and I have filed a bill to prevent this very thing from happening again, where the county could share vaccination or immunization records with a third party that's not the healthcare provider of that individual. And so, but you know that's a bill, and so we do need our Democrats to come back for us to be able to move anything with it, and then it would enact later. And so we have this current issue that we're trying to work through to ensure this information is not being shared. We're continuing to have conversations with the governor's office, attorney general's office, and Dishes to make sure that you know that local Fort Bend County Health Authority does not share private health information with this company to go door to door.
So my question, I've heard a dollar amount. How much are they allocating for this?
$350,000.
I mean, that's our taxpayer money, you know, and the one thing is this is taking personal information, but you heard who they are hiring or they want to hire is a Democrat firm. So this is all related to voting. It's all connected for us there. Now, let me ask you this question. Did it pass on Tuesday?
It did pass. We had the 2 Republican commissioners that voted against it, but the 3-2 vote, it did pass. It's moving forward. And so we got to continue to add pressure to this and continue to watch what's happening to ensure they're not sharing that information, and continue to call them out on it. They did feel a lot of heat in those days leading up to it. And I feel like probably if we had reached out and pushed on this earlier, we probably could have prevented this. But you know, there's a lot of pressure that mounted up at the last minute, but it just wasn't enough.
So how many, I don't know if Edie or Chairwoman Howe could answer. Yeah, how many people showed up to court to protest this? Do you know, Edie?
Linda was actually there. I think it was actually several hundred.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
There was overflow and protest outside, and so it showed up.
And you would agree with that, Linda? I see you just popped up there. Linda, you were there, Linda? Maybe she froze.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. I was there, a packed courtroom. I would say, I think part of the reason we didn't act sooner is because we didn't know about it. Our Democrats here didn't want us to know about it. So as soon as we found out what they were up to, we have mobilized and gotten into effect. But the I think it's the managing director for this Democrat company was hired in 2020 by Biden to be his director of coalitions. So this is a political move. It's not a COVID move or a health move. It's political. So for $345 or $350,000, it's half, from my understanding, half FEMA money, half tax money. So we're trying to
Still our money.
what?
Well, I would agree. I think that's the point here, is that if we were aware, and if, and the other point is this alone, I mean, this is happening in our backyard. We're thinking, oh, it's in one of those Democrat states. It is not. It's right here in our backyard. And that's why we've got to be aware and do something about that.
It's very dangerous. It's a violation of people's information. It's a violation of people's, coming to their home and asking people that personal questions, recording it, turning it back into the county, which the county, it says that they have, sole possession of this information. It's very dangerous. I mean, I'm working hard to try to expose this. People in our county are very alarmed, and I'm hoping to see if we can start some task force to begin attending any meetings this group holds. Maybe have a party hotline for people that go to these meetings to tell us if information is being discussed that is political, because they passed this saying it was about the concern for health and COVID, but I don't believe that. I think it's to get in people's homes to use this for the election coming up and information. And so, let me just add, even our Democrat chairman was seen on a post yesterday saying, yes, we are not going away. So this is an orchestrated attempt. I mean, it looks to me like what happened in Washington is just as much tied in with what's happened in Fort Bend County, that they're trying to just take over.
Yes, I would agree with it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that, part of attending these meetings, part of a watchdog group is not just going to the meeting, but developing relationships with the people. Even if they're the Democrat side, you still got to develop the relationship. So that's when you find out firsthand what's really going on, because they won't say it all out loud in the commissioner's court or any one of these committees. This is what, and I think Edie just mentioned, they saw it on a Facebook post. And that's when they were alerted. As I talked about the time we defeated the one issue here, it was because at a Christmas party. So it's constantly having that connection with those different entities. So Bisa, do they have any questions regarding this, or do we want to go back to our election? Because we do have a few minutes left before we have to adjourn.
Tony Ann, could I ask that those that are knowledgeable about what's happening contact my office? If we, as chair of public health, I'm very concerned about what I'm hearing, and if we ever get a quorum, I would like to do an interim hearing on that. And JC also sits on that committee. I think that would be an excellent topic of an interim hearing. Would you agree?
Absolutely. That sounds great.
So I think that Representative Jatan would be able to communicate with you also, but any members that have any insight, please, or knowledge about this, please share it with Representative Click's office. That would be awesome. Thank you. Okay. Bisa.
Karen, do you want to ask questions?
Sure, if you would like. I have some questions that we did not reach last week. If you would like to answer those. The first
Let's try a couple of those. That'd be great.
Okay. From D. Holly, she asks, We have so many issues in Dallas County. Why do we not consider using paper ballots exclusively?
I can jump in. This has come up a lot, and I think that kind of the compromise to it is the paper ballot backup that we passed in Senate Bill 598. That's going to require every machine to have a paper ballot backup, so you can verify what was keyed into the machine. The concern is that, you know, just like you can manipulate and hack into an electronic device, you can also go get a Sharpie and mark up a whole lot of paper ballots, and this is where the concern kind of comes into just using paper ballots. And so I think paper ballot backup is kind of where we're headed, and the risk limiting audit to help ensure that those machines are functioning correctly and the paper ballots are being checked will help secure elections.
All right. And Ann Grinnells asks, with so many issues, what can anyone do on the local level to help in the election integrity front?
Be an election judge. The more Republicans we have working at polling places as election judges or clerks, the fewer poll watchers that we need.
Absolutely.
And also not just yourself, but, recruit more people, that are willing to give up that time. Oh, you get paid, but I don't think it's very much. In fact, I was one time, I just gave it back to the party. But I would say, recruit more election judges, because that's huge in helping us have those fair elections. Go ahead.
And Ben Brown asks, can anybody publicize, or would you mind, Tony Ann, posting on your website the details about the prior times that Democrats walked out and what happened with those Democrats afterwards regarding the next election? What kind of results happened to them afterwards?
History was not kind to some of them. Some of them lost their jobs. They were fired by their voters for not showing up for work.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was one of the times that we ended up having up to 90 members, more than 90 members, Republicans in the House. And then I want to say one of the times we got to 101, but
yeah, we did.
Getting to 100 is not impossible. And I'm telling you, if we get to 100, there's a lot of things that can be addressed at that point. And so
that's our goal. I think our goal is to get there, because I think there's been so much that has angered people and their eyes have opened. Go ahead, Karen. Let's do one more. It's 8:01 right now. One more before we adjourn.
All right. This is probably for you, Tony Ann. How will the RNC's efforts link up with the Texas GOP's legislators' efforts, and how can those work together?
Well, the RNC does have a legal group. They do have, in fact, we had Josh Finley on our call, who is election integrity, just designated to that. And he is constantly in contact working. Our legal teams are working with people. So they are working together, and they are are helping each other out on this. Oh, and let me just say this also. I want you to know that, in fact, I shared it with you, Stephanie, that the interns at the RNC all went out and protested in front of the Democrats' hotel.
It rained on their press conference. It was really quite good.
Great. So see, they are helping, and we are trying to work together. They are really making a concerted effort. In fact, I had made a note here that maybe I should have the RNC legal come on next week if I can get them. I know we've had Josh, so I was thinking that way you guys can get it firsthand from them of what they're doing. And now we're at 8:02, so that, Karen, thank you for getting on. I don't know where you are, but I appreciate you coming on. Bisa kind of filled in for you, but you are the best. Yeah. And so again, I'm asking you for the action items is to consider forming watchdogs. Get going to your county commissioners, your city councils, your school boards. I mean, there are many other elected position groups out there. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got to be aware. And shame on me for not helping continuing that here in Bernie or in Kendall County. But it is important for us to make sure that that is helping, that we are helping our community. It's all local, and we got to stay local, and we've got to be involved. And when we are called, as Representative Jeton and Click have mentioned, and also Murr, when we're called upon, wear your t-shirt, one person, one vote, and go into Austin, and let's be there to support them. Right now, I know that it's not happening, but let's be there to support them and continue to communicate with people. And I'm not sure which one, I think it was you, Representative Jeton. If you live in a Democrat area, and have a Democrat representative, call that person, that office, and tell them we want them to show up. So those are your action items. I appreciate all of you. We will be having our call next week. Again, this now that you're signed up for here, it should continue on, and we'll be sending out reminders. And I'm not sure who our guest speaker is, but I will work on legal for maybe next time. So, or we might be able to have our chair. So we will see, but these updates are so crucial. So thank you all for being on today. Have a great weekend, and let's continue to get the message out. Hashtag easy to vote, hashtag hard to cheat. Thank you, everybody, for all that you do. Bye. Thank you, representatives. You guys are awesome.